Welcome back to Rise to Liberty podcast. This is a big one. This is the 100th episode. But before we get into that, just real quick, wanted to drop the show's sponsor. It's NadooShaveCo.com, Nadoo Shave Company, a veteran-owned, family-operated, traditional single-blade safety razor. The days of big shave are absolutely over. All this China-made multi-blade razor crap that they keep trying to sell us is it's just a waste of money, man. I'm telling you, you absolutely got to get yourself one of these razors. And you can see I don't shave a whole lot, but I do clean up my cheeks with it. I do clean up, underneath my beard, and it's absolutely the best. There's a reason why your dads, your grandfathers use products just like this. You can go to NadooShaveCo.com, NADEAUSHAVECO.com. Promo code RISE15 for 15% off at checkout. Nadoo Shave Co., where tradition beats modernity. Today, I am joined by Leighton Radner. How's it going, Leighton?
Good. Always okay over here. It's a little bit warmer than it was. We got like a bunch of snow today, so that warmed everything up a bit.
Oh, interesting. So anyone who doesn't know, Leighton's over in Alaska. So
yes, yeah.
Out in the great wilderness.
Well,
one of the last great frontiers.
I'm over in Seward. It's not quite the wilderness, but originally I'm from Big Lake. That certainly qualifies, I suppose.
So it's been a minute since we had you on. Been on your show a few times.
Yeah, it's yeah, you're actually beating me. You're at episode 100. I'm at episode like 70 something. I'm like a month and a half behind on doing shows because I had a whole kerfuffle with my apartment, so I didn't have a studio for like a month.
Yeah.
So everybody's like, "Why aren't you streaming?" I'm like, "I can't. I could stream from the hotel, but my audio was horrible. I was using my trusty backup my Dave Smith mic, which I still have up here. I mean, this thing still rocks, but
yeah,
in a hotel room with no audio absorption at all and shit, it just sounds garbage."
Yeah, I get you.
And everybody just assumes when you're streaming from a hotel that you're like 5 minutes from getting a hooker. So it's it is, that joke definitely comes up.
Oh yeah.
So I took a little bit of a hiatus and started doing just regular videos because I could put those up from anywhere because I can edit, fairly well, so I can make it look like I'm pretty much, in a professional enough setting, even if I'm just in the back office somewhere. And so I started doing that stuff, and sure enough, that stuff's been getting quite a bit of views compared to my last style of content I've been making. So that's been certainly interesting.
But yeah, you've been covering the Eric July stuff, right?
Yeah, so I covered that. I covered the Lady Ballers thing. There was Shadiversity talking about AI I covered in a video. All of those kind of, like, in my opinion, like, in comparison to how big my channel is, blew up, right?
Yeah.
So like 3,000-4,000 views for a channel that has like
Hell yeah.
200 subs is pretty good.
Yeah.
And so I for a little bit here I was able to get somewhere in the ballpark of like 35,000 views in like 2 months, which is pretty impressive. Like I was like kind of like, okay, well, I should probably start continuing to make this kind of stuff because people seem to want to watch it, which is kind of the whole point of YouTube, I suppose. And then I'm going to keep the live streams sort of somewhere in between. So I'll do ones where I cover that stuff, and then I'll do ones where I still talk about sort of current event, more political stuff. And
hell yeah. So what was the Eric July thing? Because I never followed any of that.
So to put it like simply, for like the libertarian folk that know him from that stuff, he made YouTube videos and would go to like Young Americans for Liberties things and stuff. And I'd seen him speak at an event at one point and things. And I'd watched his YouTube videos. I have a bunch of friends who know him, so I was like, okay, yeah, this guy's cool. And then he decided to come out with a comic book. And this was right around the same time that he stopped sort of covering politics stuff and sort of moved into being more about like pop culture and like, Marvel, DC stuff and talking about, Disney movies and things. And that content to me kind of just soured. I don't really get the appeal of making endless videos about other people's content and then complaining that they're not making content you want. To me, it's like, well, people don't care about you anymore. You need to do something creative and you need to replace it or create something that's going to replace it. And I think so. Eric kind of saw that, and I think he wanted to kind of fill that role. But I read the first book that he put out, and it was just bad. I read a lot of comics from the 70s and stuff because that's what my mom was into, and so that's what got me into comic books. And so I'm used to these sort of gripping comic books, and I've talked about this stream I was on, because back in the day, like, you didn't know you were going to get a bunch of issues. Like, you might, really what they wanted to look at were the first two, because the first issue is going to sell better than any other issue because people want to read the book. The real test is whether that second issue can sell very well, because then that means that book was able to retain readers, and that's what people really cared about back then. And so some of these writers would come out with books that they didn't know if they were going to be successful. They could flop, just like a sitcom or a stand-up would do, or anybody in an artistic industry, or autistic industry, really.
Hell yeah.
And so, he came out with this book. I read it. I wasn't a fan of it. And around the same time, this other guy named Dick Masterson, who's a content creator I'm aware of, started talking about this whole thing. And he was on a live stream with a buddy of Eric's who said, review the book. And so Dick did. And the review that Dick gave wasn't great. And it wound up blowing up. Congratulations on your 100th episode, Jacob. I'm glad to see you.
Hey, thanks, Adam.
Adam's great.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely love that dude.
Yeah, so basically he one of Dick Masterson's producers, a guy named Riley, he was sort of making this meme out of Eric revolving around his shoulder hair, because Eric July has wife beaters on in a lot of his videos. Those kind of like, right?
Yeah,
and you can see he has a bunch of shoulder hair. Yeah,
very hairy man.
Riley made this Twitter account and this whole persona based around Clipaverse, right? Eric July's thing is called Ripaverse, and the whole idea was that he was going to shave Eric July's shoulder hair, right?
Oh my god, that's funny.
Right, and this is what I'm reacting to. Like, I'm a fan of the Dick Show, so I'm seeing this. I mean, I've got Men Are This is Men Are Better Than Women. That's Dick Masterson's book up there. That's like I like that crowd of the internet. So I'm sort of laughing along, I think, with everybody else on that side of things. And as somebody who is a fan of Eric too, I'm just sort of like, yeah, this is kind of funny. And then a bunch of accounts on Twitter started getting DMCA strikes. And one of the accounts that got DMCA'd was this Clipaverse account. And it used this logo that was sort of an adaptation of Eric's logo.
Yeah.
Right. And so they struck his Twitter account, and that Twitter account ended up getting removed. I could say he's back on Twitter on a much smaller account now, but this was a huge sort of blow to him as a creator. And I come from an era of YouTube where you just don't do the DMCA thing. Like, that's just the biggest bitch shit on this platform. I think that whole system is garbage.
Nuts.
Yeah, and I think that entire system is garbage on YouTube. And I think even the people who are pro IP to the max know that this system is horseshit. They'll even admit that this system doesn't work properly. So, you can basically, and whether it's YouTube, whether it's Twitter, whether it's any of these platforms, you can basically just get anything removed and claim ownership over it when you don't. In this case, it's a logo that was clearly altered and was clearly different, so it just doesn't make sense to me. And
so clearly parody.
Yes, clearly parody. And at the end of the day, these accounts got removed, and that's what really sort of got me involved in the first place, was because I'm like, well, okay, like the guy who sent out most of the reports, from my understanding, was a guy named Gabe El-Taib, who was working for Eric. He's one of his employees at the time and was handling sort of the marketing side of the Rippaverse. So it all fit. And I'm like, oh God, this really doesn't look good. And I sort of started digging into things and realizing that basically what this all boiled down to is Eric
we got
was
David
reacting.
Fight with us coming in.
Oh, hey.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Not too bad. What's going on, David?
Oh, just hanging out. Just I made some cookies tonight, so I then ripped off. They were no bake, so you have to put them on the wax paper. So I just ripped a bunch of the wax paper and brought it with me into my office, so I can keep munching on cookies while we do this.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah! We were just talking about the Rippaverse thing. Leighton had covered it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard any of this story at all, so this is pure entertainment for me. This is great.
Yeah. So he put basically what it boils down to is he couldn't handle criticism, and he kept going on Twitter and responding to people who he branded as haters. And he's built up this mentality on YouTube of being the guy who monetized the haters, right? He would have people on a show and he would debate them and trash them on comic book stuff and pop culture stuff. And then he just sort of did the opposite. He wouldn't talk to any of the people that he was, right? He just sort of made sure he was filtering who he was sort of communicating with on his platform. But then on Twitter, he's just going off. And everybody in his circle is going off. And so I just started kind of responding to that stuff and laughing at it. I had originally the big movement of it was that this whole lawsuit thing happened. And the lawsuit was basically, there's a thing called the ISOM Ministries, right? And they make Christian media, right? Well, okay. Eric makes a comic book where the main character's got a cross on his dick. And so you have sort of this issue where your book is called ISOM and you're publishing it and it has some Christian undertones in it, right? And so somebody somewhere at this ministry decided to issue some form of lawsuit.
What up, Sean?
Eric made videos claiming that the lawsuit was brought forth because of a single email that was sent to the ministry that said basically, this guy's infringing on your trademark, and it was written in such a way that you were supposed to think it was somebody from the Dick Show, somebody from Dick Masterson's sort of crew. Yeah. But in reality, this was just a listener of their show. This isn't like their producer, somebody who works for him. It's just a random person who listens and decided, hey, I'm going to fucking troll this guy because this is the internet and that's how this works. And if you're making millions of dollars on the internet, you should know that. To be clear here, we're small animals in this sea, right? If you're making, millions of dollars on a fundraiser and you now are literally you have $1 million company, you should know how the internet functions by that point. That's your job. And so it just sort of kept sort of snowballing from there. It hasn't really gotten any better. The last thing that sort of developed out of it, which I'm going to be having a video coming out here soon, is about the Soska sisters, because these are two people that Eric has hired for his comic company, and they have quite the fucking past. I think everybody in the libertarian space should be very hesitant to talk or get involved or follow these people. These are the people I warn people about, from libertarian stereotypes. If you want to stay away from those, this is how. These people have made these horror movies movies, where this guy has a bunch of really bad allegations against him. I think this guy's Faye Valentine or May Valentine or some shit that made this film with them. But
Hey,
they're on.
speaking of which, we got Adam Fitzgerald.
Hey,
How's it going, Adam?
What's up, Adam?
Gentlemen, good evening. Congratulations, Jacob, on your 100th episode.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
very
me on.
much. Yeah,
Layden,
of course.
David, how are you?
Doing good.
good.
Great.
So we were just talking about some drama that had gone on with Eric July. I'm not sure if you know who that is.
I've seen the name around.
Yeah, he's
Hey,
quite
Sean.
popular. So we were just kind of talking about that. And Leighton was just what was the name of the sisters?
Soska sisters. They're
The
twins.
Soska sisters.
So they have like this horrible horror movie out there. Like I'm saying horror movie, but I'm doing that to kind of not trip up certain things on YouTube. This is like practically snuff shit. Like I don't.
Yeah.
It's messed up. Like, but like the two of them are on film in this thing, like vomiting at each other's mouths and stuff. Like it's grotesque shit.
Kind
And
of
then-
sounds like a John Waters film.
Well, you're right. And well, no, because John Waters works. I like John Waters, so that's the difference. Like I can watch that stuff and like it. Like,
Yeah.
but this is just. It's not even artful. It's just grotesquely bad. And then you know, they had this tweet where they're at a convention, right? And they're twins and they're in a van and they spot twins on the street. And these are minors, right? From what I've gathered. And they decided to take photos of these people without their knowledge, right? And
Yeah.
put it on Twitter with the caption that has a sort of rapey vibe to it, because they're saying, oh, we're in this van following these people, you know, referencing that they're in this van. It was like, oh, I really don't like this shit. Like,
And so what did Eric hire them for though?
they're like making a comic book for his company and doing stuff with him. And then he put out this video to do crowd control because everybody in his fan base is sort of being like, why the fuck did you hire these people? They got like a past that like is pretty nasty. And his response to it was like, well, I talked to them and they are talking about converting to Christianity. And it's like, that is not,
Okay.
stop right there, like back up. So you understand that they've done something bad enough that they need Jesus. Like that's basically what you're saying. Like, again, like I have been on the internet long enough to like live through all these dramas that have happened and shit, and I never get involved with them, but now I have a channel and I saw this one and I'm like, this is just dumb enough that I feel like
Yeah.
I can talk about it. So it's been fun.
That's
And
wild. So his first comic like bombed.
so no,
'Cause-
that's the thing. He has a big YouTube following.
Yeah.
So you have
Massive.
to stop. You have to stop looking at it like a comic book and start looking at it like merch, right? Like
okay.
he's just a big name. So if he sells this thing, and he got on Fox News with it, and he's on Blaze and all these
Okay.
places, so it made millions. But it's a bad product. If you know comic books, if you've ever, I mean, I
So is
employ
it part of
anybody-
like the like anti-woke movement?
Yes, exactly. That's how he
Okay.
branded it. Like he has this comics code that he made that's a whole page long that makes no sense. It's just like I'm somebody who writes. Like that's what I like doing in my free time. So I like storytelling and I like narrative. And this book lacks all of that. It has no
Jeez.
substance to it. It's just bleh. And the artwork, the big one was the artwork got outed for being this kind of 3D asset shit, where and Eric just kind of admitted to this, was that a bunch of the art you're seeing in the book, people started being like, this looks kind of manicky, and like somebody
Hey,
just
thank you very
posed this
much.
character. And sure enough, people were able to find on 3D asset like stores
Oh no.
the exact assets that they used in the comic book. And so to the point
Oh.
where like a castle they built right in the background, people were like, is that a fucking beer stein that is being used as the side of the castle? And sure enough, right in the 3D
What?
asset store is this beer stein. Like, you know, the old German beer steins with
Yeah.
the little clicker? Yeah, they just used that to portray the whole side of this castle and blew it up in size.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
there was a scene where there's this truck, right, that's driving in the frame, and it's like there's this house in the distance. Not only was the house a 3D model, but the fucking truck was. And it was so obvious because there are non-symmetrical lines, polygons being used in the truck design that they didn't cut out. They're still present in the
Wow.
comic book. There's spelling errors and stuff throughout it. And it's like, man, this is your first product you're putting out to people. You can excuse some stuff, but when you make this amount of money, when you've got this much fervor around your comic book, you can't have that happen. You can't.
Yeah.
And then the second one wasn't
Wow.
good. It's like you didn't follow it up by going, I made mistakes, guys. What it is I fucked up and I'm gonna fix it. It's like, no, he just comes out with another shit book. And I'm like, well, fucking I can't help you then. You know, like, I tried, damn it. Like, and I have libertarian friends who know the guy so well and are like
Yeah.
in the comic space. Like Jack Lloyd is somebody I know, and but I can't run cover for this shit. I'm not gonna if I see something that's shit, I'm gonna laugh at it. Like, this is my whole principle.
Jeez. Well, one thing I wanted to bring up, I found this just earlier today. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on it because I think this guy, I don't even know what to think about him most of the time, but it's Mike Cernovich.
Oh,
And so
Yeah.
let's yeah. Let's just play the video
Cernovich
real
is a
quick.
major cuck. That's a
Let's see.
that's
I
Let's,
thought you were going
Jack
for a different
Murphy.
CU word.
oh no, he's a straight Jack Murphy character. That guy's an actual cuck.
Wow.
Like, no, I mean cuck in the literal sense
Yeah.
of the word.
Oh yeah,
Thank
for
you,
sure.
Jake.
I
Yeah,
still
oh,
thought
yeah.
you were gonna call him a different CU word. That's all.
Oh, that too, for the record.
Well, let's
For
check
Jake,
out this video he released. I think this is personally I think this is crazy, but let's see what you guys think.
I support the death penalty for breaking into cars and tearing off catalytic converters, and that's not clickbait, and here's why. We had a plumber scheduled to come out because there's some massive flooding happening, and we needed him to replace some pipes. He's not able to, so we had to get a water pump to pump it out, which I was able to do, but that meant that I didn't have to go to work. But since I have a laptop job, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is I remember
It's
people like my
listening to
dad,
fucking
who
Robert
were
F.
at the
Kennedy.
financial margins, could not afford to miss a day of work. Right? People
He just
can't afford to
oozes
miss a day of work.
chewiness. What is
That
going
creates
on
a
with
whole
this?
load of downstream
I'm allowed to say
problems.
that,
How are you
so
gonna pay the
I-
rent? How
but
you gonna
this
pay the
man is
mortgage?
just
How are you
like-
going to buy your groceries? Let's talk about the plumber. His car was broken into, dashboard was torn up. He's going to miss 2 or 3 days of work. He's self-employed. That means no money. 2 or 3 days. That means his bills get pushed back. Why? So some drug addict working for the cartels could steal? That's
Look, I get that. I get that, and I'm not trying to
I
defend.
mean, if you're
that.
working for the cartels, you don't need to be stealing shit out of people's cars. You make more money than I do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is what somebody like Cernovich that sits in his nice house with his fucking nice car doesn't understand, is because he's insulated, and these
Yeah.
people always are. He's no understanding of the real world.
What do you mean these
that's-
the choice we're
people?
making. That's the
Clayton?
choice we're making. I used to think it was
my own
barbaric,
people.
the
Goddamn
Code
it!
of Hammurabi.
I
And you
hate
read
this.
about Saudi Arabia decapitating criminals, and you would think, how barbaric. And I realize now why they do it, because you either execute criminals for property crimes, which, by the way, would end the crimes overnight because they would get the point. So you either execute them or you just let people suffer, because what happened to me today is a minor inconvenience. Honestly, whatever. I'm not even a big deal to me in the grand scheme of things, but to the plumber, it's a big deal. The people like how I grew up, it's a big deal. To millions of people, the tens of million of people, it's a big deal. So we're making a choice, and the choice is that we're going to let everyone suffer so that people can commit crimes. And, oh, it's just a property crime. No, it isn't. It's a human rights violation because you're stealing people's ability to work.
This
So we got to bring it
absolute
back.
surface
Death
level
penalty.
horseshit.
No.
What? How hyperbolic? I mean,
Well, it's the arguments he's making are just surface level because they are arguments. Like you can make that argument,
Yeah.
but it's not actually based on anything real because you're just looking at these examples and pulling from them. The reality is like, I mean, you could say that the police not being able to protect people's property is a violation of the Constitution, and they're not properly adhering to the way they're supposed to protect the citizenry. Right? You could say that. And I would actually make that argument from a legal position. I think that's probably accurate. Like if the police have taken up this purview of being the protectors of the public, they're being paid to do this job, but clearly that's not being done very fucking well because you've got all these people being mugged and people's cars being broken into and so forth. Well, back in the day, the solution to that was the people still. It wasn't the Constitution. It wasn't the government. Like I talk about story behind me of this guy named Soapy Smith up there. And he got killed by the Committee of 101, which was a vigilante group from Alaska that formed in the late 1800s and just said, this guy's robbing people in town. He's a con artist. We're just going to shoot him. Like that was the decision-making process. So what he's talking about there is something that's happened before. It's called corrupt policing or incorrect policing combined with a public that doesn't understand how to protect itself, right? If people in the state he was in that were having cars broken into actually were allowed to protect themselves, maybe those things wouldn't be happening in the first place. You wouldn't need the place. You'd need a body bag and a morgue.
What do you got to say about that?
I think the biggest fallacy of the arguments that he made was that it would end crime. Like he was talking about medieval whatever, and they used to just like chop people's hands off and kill people and whatever. Do you really think that there was no crime in medieval England
and yet eventually you still got Australia?
Right. Yeah. Like you can't say like, oh, if we just make the penalties bad enough, then crime goes away. That's a completely illegitimate argument, and it's been proven hundreds of thousands of times throughout history.
Well, he knows that. This guy's a fucking lawyer. This is clickbait.
The big
people. This is his clickbait.
I mean,
he said this isn't clickbait, and then went on to make an entirely clickbait bullshit video.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
it's not clickbait; it's just rage bait. Big difference.
Adam, what's your take on Cernovich?
Boring. Mike Cernovich, I'm familiar with for a long time, a couple of years now, and I have him on permanent block on Twitter, only because I see him as a pediatric 50-something male who wants to be so cool with the younger crowd, but he can't be. He can't go back in time. So he says racy things in order to remain relevant. Reminds me of like a young Glenn Beck. Like Glenn Beck used to say racy things too.
It's a great analogy.
But Cernovich has a history of doing this for the last 20 years, and I think his shtick is over. That's what I think. He has nothing very interesting to say. But then again, I mean, when you're slanted and when you're politically slanted for most of your life, you're catering to a specific crowd. You're not catering to everybody. So he'd be a horrible comedian.
I would have to agree on that.
I couldn't agree with Adam more on that. That's like a good summation of his position.
I just think it's so crazy because it's very clearly clickbait, right? Like, let's kill people for breaking in cars. Like that's such a out there position to have.
His whole Twitter is that. I mean, it's every post he makes is basically made to rage bait people into responding. By the way, I mean, that's a lot of these political, like Dom Lucre, right? Like this, there's no difference between Dom Lucre and that guy. They do the same thing. They're in the same world. They're just clicks and impressions, and that is their real currency. They don't care about actual facts or anything else. It's just all...
It's hard.
Adam sounds like Katrina. Yeah. I don't know what's going on there.
Oh, you're
Adam, are you in Hamas? I don't
Sorry,
know.
pal.
I can't.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There you go.
My microphone's it's too far away. Sorry. But yeah, Leighton, you brought up something earlier that I agreed with. I thought it was a very sound point. Mike Cernovich doesn't relate to people, only because he comes from a very, wealthy background. So he's only his perception of the public is, a bit skewed. So he, that's why we sit here and laugh at him and joke and mock. But that's only because of his awkwardness, not ours.
Yeah, I think it was really telling when he tried to be relatable there for a second and talk about how he grew up poor and then went on to say that his dad, just his dad, had a blank job. Like clearly stay-at-home mom, one income household with like I've seen enough of his videos to know that he's not an only child. Like that's not lower class. Like
Yeah.
living off of one income is not lower class under any circumstance.
No, I mean I I will always put mine up against anybody, but I grew up with 7 people in a 500 square foot log cabin in the middle of the woods. So like you don't get it's like
Yeah.
I'll weigh that up against most people. Like
Yeah, it's I don't know, the way he talks about things and the fact that he still lives in California, like that should just tell you right there that he's just he's a fake, he's a fraud. The way
he's a shyster.
yeah, the tone of his Twitter, and then like he just still lives over there. It's just crazy. Oh, look at this. We got bootleg libertarian coming in. What up, Chris?
He's not a real libertarian.
There's no such thing. You can't change my mind.
Hey, you fucker, you gotta come in here and beat with the guns that I have? This is stupid. I want to leave now. I gotta move more shit on screen. This is
Does the size of my gun collection make yours feel small? Is that what it was?
all I
yeah.
have are Alaskan related guns, so it's all old shit anyway. It's like 30-30s and
But that's the good shit. That's the
stuff I
put a
like.
hole through
Yeah.
someone stuff.
That's what I've been shooting for the longest, so that's what I'm good with. I like everybody always jokes when I'm like, I'm a better shot with a Model 94 30-30 than I am with any firearm I could shoot. Like that's just the way it is.
Yeah, I
That's a
really
good one.
like that, by the way.
Well, Jacob, I came on because I wanted to say happy coming out day. This is your transition announcement stream, correct?
Yes.
That's
you
what the email
outed me to everyone. Thank you.
No, for real though, happy birthday, happy 100th,
thank you.
and all that good shit.
Hey, thanks for showing up, guys.
Oh, happy
this-
birthday. I didn't know it was your birthday.
Yeah, 32 today. So,
Birthday and
Wow,
100th
32.
episode. That's some pretty big milestones, man.
I know, right? It just kind of
Did it
just
fall
lined
that
up.
way and happen that way randomly, or did you do that on purpose?
So I was gonna do the 100th stream like a couple of days ago, and then I just, everything just kind of worked out the way it was gonna be better doing it tonight, anyways. So just
Sweet.
decided to just kind of mesh both of them. So
Makes sense.
yeah. Hey, thanks, Susie.
Hey.
Filthy Lucre, that's Sean Russell.
Yeah.
He's always good chats.
So speaking of another person who is entirely like out of touch, I found this other video clip I thought was absolutely hilarious.
Newsom. How do you feel about Newsom? Had him on my show
Hey,
Friday.
hey.
I saw that, and
Hey,
I first of all, I love him. You just like a guy or you don't. I've known him for a long time. He's done my show for a long time. Do I love everything he does as the governor of California? No, I don't. I wouldn't say I'm undertaxed. Yeah, I have issues with this state. He's a guy. One reason I want him to run for president, well, is because he's obviously a winner. This guy could fucking do it. It's insane that we have the guy, but we can't run him because we
Define
have
a
to
winner.
tip.
He's a winner. Gavin Newsom's a winner.
winner. I love just the
around
response.
Biden.
I'd
define a
agree with
winner.
that though.
I mean, he is a winner, but
Well,
He
he's a
would beat
winner for the
Trump.
Democrats.
He would beat Trump head to head.
You think so?
Yeah.
He's that charismatic.
I don't know about that. I don't know. The only reason I think, because I think Trump would just not debate him. And so
That
it
doesn't
just
matter. I've said this publicly a bunch of times. I think whichever party doesn't run a 78-year-old rich douchebag racist fat piece of shit wins. Like if you have that versus a young, charismatic, well-loved across the country governor, whether it's Newsom, whether it's DeSantis, it doesn't matter. Anyone but Biden and Trump beats the other one. Like easily.
But wouldn't that mesh out in like the party structure? Like, wouldn't you have seen like somebody like Vivek get more support than in the Republican base?
No, because their base is like their thought leader. Like no one else within the Republican Party that votes in the Republican primary is turning their back on Trump. But the swing votes throughout the country that actually matter, the like couple hundred people that actually decide every presidential election, those people are going to vote for the person who's not highly likely to die in office this term.
I'll just say that the Republicans that I'm around here in Alaska, and I do have some connects with like the party structure up here in like Anchorage and Juneau, which is where most of the shit gets done. What I see with them, especially the younger side, is that they're pretty far Trump, to the point where I don't think if you took Trump out of the equation, they would even vote. I think they're likely to just leave, like a lot of them. And I've made that argument, which might support what you're saying, by the way. I don't want that to sound like it takes away, because that literally could lead to being correct if enough people just pour out and don't support him anyway.
Well, Americans, you have to remember too, are incredibly vain, short-sighted, and have a very short memory. So the best-looking candidate typically wins. And this is something we were talking about before we hopped on here. But
a few,
just got covered up. The candidates that typically have more charisma are more appealing, whether visually or auditorially or whatever. Obama, he said he spent 8 years saying nothing in all of his speeches, but he sounded good doing it. He sounded charismatic. People liked listening to him. He didn't sound threatening. He sounded, Susie said, what'd you call it? The Marvin Gaye song?
Yeah. Every speech was a Barry White song.
Yeah, it's a Barry White song. People enjoy it.
I'm a non-threatening black man.
So the argument that if Gavin Newsom ran, that he would win is a valid argument, because he's not an ugly dude. He's a fairly good-looking dude. He can be charismatic. He has all the traits to win, and he comes complete with stupid talking points that no one gives a shit about. So I mean, he's the perfect American politician. Yeah,
yeah.
And it's weird how, like, if you talk to somebody from California, even a Democrat, there's a bunch of people that will talk shit about him. If you talk to someone from New York about Cuomo, same thing. Obviously, he's gone now, but like, rewind to 2019, 2020, especially during COVID, like the rest of the country has only seen mostly the better sides of these governors. They're not like getting their bad decisions aren't affecting their lives. And so people like Whitmer, Cuomo, and Newsom are actually fairly well liked throughout the country amongst the average population. Which I honestly like. Bill Maher is a fairly decent person. He's not a party person anymore. He's a fairly well thought out person, and even he's falling for it. So I think
that's why I got this clip, because I thought it was so funny, because he's kind of come out like against the woke stuff recently, which he was notoriously bad on at first.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up watching his. Oh, sorry. I grew up watching
politically incorrect.
Yeah, I grew up watching his show because my grandmother loved him. And the thing that I always got impressed on me from his stuff is that he's pretty much always willing to side within his own life whoever he meets that is able to convince him they're successful. So somebody would come on his show, they would talk about a certain ideology or an opinion that was happening in the public, and then 2 months later, Bill Maher's entire existence would be that opinion, because he saw that they were successful from it or because he became friends with them in his personal life. That's happened with him on
Yeah.
many occasions.
Let's hear what he has to say about like what success is, because I just absolutely loved this.
And define a winner.
Well, he would win the election.
Oh, so
He would win the
so
election.
he's a talented debater, speaker, communicator,
Yeah,
deflector.
and politician, and he's a
Right.
smart guy. He's
Right.
a smart, real guy with a pair of balls. Do I love everything? No, you never do with a politician. But first of all, I think if he ran for president, it'd be great because it would force him to move to the center. Now you're running not just in California. I mean, this is California. It's weirdo. Will.
Are you a results-driven guy?
No, I like to think, watch things
Yeah.
fall apart.
I mean,
of course,
you wouldn't build a show that you build and win at the levels you won, for decades if you weren't results-driven, right? I mean, you're Bill Maher.
What do you mean? What's the point about
So that's
results?
exactly where I'm going with you. So results-driven guy.
Right.
What areas has Newsom won in? You said he's a winner.
Winner of the election. He
No,
could
no.
win the election.
But based on what, though? Do you want results? Like, what has he done to California to say he's a winner? What?
Oh God, I don't know. It's too.
Bill, you're a smart
You know what?
guy.
He made it rain. Okay, dude. It wasn't
Yeah,
raining.
someone who said that. He said, "Great
It
job."
wasn't raining, and now it's raining. So he's got my vote.
Okay,
you know what?
respect. I mean, he
I don't know. I don't follow the news.
But
It's
yeah,
a
you-
character
Bill,
I play
you
on
do.
television.
Don't deflect.
It's
You're a
character.
very smart guy. You're a very smart guy.
It's a character. I actually live with my delicate wife Sue and our 8 homeschooled children. We just had twins, Sean and Hannity.
That was good.
Don't believe everything you see on TV.
So
there.
then what this does to me, this actually makes it easier for me to not even have to have this discussion and just move on to other things we can talk about, is you base your character on
My
on your
character.
candidate. You base your candidate based on being a good debater, deflecting, not necessarily results.
No, I
Because
don't.
if that's how you do it, then
Shut up.
Newsom is fantastic,
This is
Bill.
stupid. You're better than this.
Really?
I hope so. I don't know. I'm just
So
getting
when
to
I
know you,
asked you
but
a question,
I
I said-
told you are.
I
mean,
said-
it's a silly argument. A debater. Like I can't tell. I've been doing political commentary on television for 30 years. I think I can tell when a guy is just debating or whether make a calculated guess on how he's going to be actually as president. There's two different things: running and being.
Bill
being the
Maher's
guy.
track record is horrible.
Do
on
I
that,
like
by
it
the
that
way.
Newsom
Yeah,
is good
it
at the
is.
running part? I do, because that means he can get elected. Do I also think that if he got elected, he would be a good president? I do. Generally moving the country in the right direction. I would like to take him back a little toward the
Wow.
middle, but
Based on what, though? Based on what?
well, California is just a kind of a crazy, can't do the taxes, the graft really is what is the. I was asking him about that.
That's the only problem with California, right? Just the taxes. You kidding me?
My grandfather's lived in California for the majority of his life. Montebello. That California has had issues for about 45 years, all of which are government related, and none of which have been made better, certainly in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So
I
here's-
mean, they tried to get him out of office with the referendum, and they completely ignored it. So
Well, they had the black face of white supremacy running, so that was that was never going to happen.
Well, I mean, I think if anything, that proves Bill Maher's point, though. Like, he had to run multiple elections within the last term and has won all of them. He's never lost an election.
No, I don't think Patrick is even disagreeing necessarily with his point that he could win the election. I think the argument is that who cares if he could win the election? He'd be bad at it.
But
which
Bill
is
Maher thinks that Trump is the devil. He
Right.
might have broken free from a lot of his leftist bullshit, but he is still fully and totally in Trump derangement syndrome. So anyone that can stop Trump from becoming president is a good thing.
Mhm.
Period.
So, yeah, I
And
think-
if it's better than Biden, even better. like
So, yeah, I
his
think-
bar is pretty low. Sorry.
think-
Shut the fuck up, bootleg. No one wants to listen to you.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Turns into
Goddamn
internet
New
blood
Yorkers
sports
think they're
real
fucking
quick.
better than everybody else. How's those fucking towers, boy? Anyways,
Oh my
so
god.
Bill Maher is correct though. I think Gavin Newsom would be an absolute dominating force as a presidential candidate. He would absolutely, I think,
Yep.
win in the context of modern winning, which in the context of modern winning doesn't fucking matter because nobody has won an election since the 2000s. And here is why. Every single election in my lifetime since the 2000s has been contested. No one has fully agreed on the results of a presidential election in the last 24 fucking years. So why does it matter? Anyone that they run will not be a guaranteed winner because no one agrees on who's in fucking charge anymore. Like hell, goddamn Republicans are saying that lizard people have kidnapped Joe Biden and turned him into like an anal probe or some shit. I don't know. It's gotten so stupid it doesn't matter.
See, I thought you were going
Nephilim
somewhere.
shit.
I thought
Yeah.
you were going somewhere else with that point, which I agree entirely with what you were saying. But when you said no one's won it, I thought you were going to say because it's always been lost like decisively by the other person, which I think also would play into this. Like Trump is consistently losing voters every fucking day. And this time around he's been a little bit better at retention, but throughout the entire 2020 election, I was knocking on Republican doors and having people that voted for him in the primary and then in 2016 and then even in the primary, like, you know, if they had one, went out and voted to stop Bill Weld or whatever. But then by the time November 2020 came around, they were like, nah, fuck this dude. Like, no. And so I think like he's just continuing that like I said, that like normie in the middle base that actually decides the presidential election are mostly done with Trump. But if it's Biden, he might still be able to pull it off.
Do you think all these court cases he's fighting across the nation are helping him or hurting him? Because I think, and in all honesty, I think all the targeted attacks he's had in the last year or two, that's helped him in quite a bit. Because if you look at independent voters, they
Agreed.
favor Trump over Biden because they feel like he's been victimized by the system, specifically Joe Biden. Whether that's correct or not, it's the impression that they've received by the way that this has been carried out.
I think that's a great point, Chris, because we've seen similar just a year and a half ago with the re-election, the sixth re-election of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was facing 3 corruption charges of his own, and people were expecting him to be in the jails. Meanwhile, he unprecedented won the 6th institution for the Prime Minister of Israel, and this is coming on the heels of a very tumultuous 5th administration. So he wasn't very popular at all, but then all of a sudden he was a surprise win. I think he also, Chris, you also bring up a good point about him being seen as maligned by the institution or the federal government itself, and which so many people are now becoming more paranoid and distrustful regarding what happened with the COVID narrative and whatnot. No matter what you feel about it, Trump is basically gaining the favor of those type of people, and those type of people are basically lower class and middle class, because middle class is now seen as lower class with the rate of inflation and rent prices we're seeing throughout the United States, especially here in New York. But yeah, I think those are salient points made by Chris there. It's very good.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
To answer your actual question though, Chris, about like, are these helping or hurting him? This sounds bullshit, but unfortunately I believe it to be true. It's helping him up until the point that he's actually convicted. Once
would
he's
agree with
actually
that.
convicted, that's going to hurt.
I think the conviction is what's keeping him from tanking, and I think you're 100% right. I think as long as he can keep skating by on technicalities and bullshit, which he seems to keep doing, because if you look at the whole Georgia thing, the attorney general was dating one of his people on his fucking team, and they said it wasn't a conflict of interest. But obviously, we know that would be. You have to recuse yourself from that position. So he's going to skate by on that one too. And I think either he is the world's best government plant to run for president ever, and that's why everything just keeps magically working some psychotic way, or he is the luckiest son of a bitch I've ever seen. But it keeps working for him. And the day
I think
that
it's
he
a bit of
quits, I
both.
think you're right. It crumbles down around him.
The Teflon Don, nothing
Yeah.
sticks to him.
I don't
and
have a good. Oh, sorry.
some of these are some of these lawsuits are just so stupid though. Like whether he's actually guilty of things. I mean, obviously he's guilty of some things. I mean, look at who his lawyer was for the longest time in New York. But like some of them are just such stupid lawsuits. I don't know why they would even think any of these would actually stick to him. And even if they do, the cult of personality built around him, I don't think like his core base is going to care at all.
Yeah, I don't know, because it's very weird. Like I said, I think until a conviction happens, he's okay. But most of his base still believe, even if they don't believe in the federal government or this and that, and they're starting to get a little bit wary, at their core, they all still believe that the system works, and especially the criminal justice system. Like, these are deep red Republicans we're talking about. They, if somehow we actually get the entire GOP to start questioning the police and the courts, the LP just had the biggest win of all time, and I don't think that that's happening this decade. So if he actually gets convicted and there's a legitimate like paper trail of like this law exists, he broke this law, so he got convicted of something, most of his base is going to have to be like, shit, you're right. Not
David,
all.
if I could play devil's advocate for a minute with you.
Please do.
Let's say there is a conviction of Donald Trump. Do you think this would lead to a more fervent and faithful background for Trump itself, and basically break off from the Conservative Party in total, which I think, the conservatives actually don't like Trump, actually. They think he's a hindrance, as we see with DeSantis and Trump itself and during 2020. But do you see if Trump was to be convicted for anything, do you see basically a breakaway from the Conservative Party and this would be a new third party of sorts?
I don't know if they would do it politically. I don't know if it would be a new party or if you would just see a mass exodus from the Republican Party into agorism or what most of us do when we get sick of trying and losing. If it's clear that the system is rigged, why bother trying to start from an even smaller position and fight that rigged system when you could just walk away and try to put your energy somewhere else? But I think you're what you're hitting on, of like a bunch of his base just kind of leaving the Republican Party, would definitely happen.
Alaska has a weird culture when it comes to this kind of politics, because we're so separated from the rest of the US that our whole culture is based around statehood versus federal stuff. So at the end of the day, the presidency stuff, like, it only goes so far in the minds of most Alaskans, because the only real thing that they view them as affecting is the outside economy and the way that we're allowed to collect resources, right? So whoever's in charge of the federal situation is going to be the one that's deciding how we collect oil, collect raw minerals, things like that. So that's really the only reason people vote, and so people typically vote Republican, and so whoever the most popular Republican is who they're going to support. I do know there's a contingency of like the real hardcore Trump people here, but those guys, like I said before, I think most of them are just likely not to vote if Trump isn't the guy that's up there. They're just going to fall out completely, and so that puts whoever the Democrat is in a much better position anyhow, because that's just dead votes for the Republican side. Out of all of that, what I hear is hopefully Alaska, when something like that happens and the Republicans that are good that might exist are looking for a spot, they start to go towards something like the Alaskan independence movement or the libertarian side of things. I'm preferential to trying to do something like Joe Vogler did, but that's my own liking. So
yeah. So I did find a clip I kind of wanted Adam's opinion because I know this is kind of up his alley of things. I definitely want your guys' opinion as well. But I thought this was just really interesting coming from the man in a mask in chief. You know, that's one of the conspiracy theories. He's a doppelganger in a mask or whatever. Man, I've heard some of the craziest theories.
It's Timothy McVeigh.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I do hold them responsible in the sense that they're supplying the weapons.
So in case you didn't hear, they were asking about Iran.
The people who did it. We'll have that discussion. We'll see.
Like a scared cat.
I don't think we need a wider war in the Middle East. That's not what I'm looking for.
Right now he's looking for
You
that
ever
taffy
pull
put in
your
his pocket.
you ever pull your cat out of the bathtub? You ever pull your cat out of the bathtub and it looks at you like, what the fuck did you just do to me? Why the fuck did you do this? What did I do to you? Why? Like it looks at you with such distress. That's the face that Joe Biden gives whenever a reporter is talking to him.
That's the most accurate description I've ever heard.
He looks like he's doing the same thing with the Asians that he did with the Hispanics. You remember when he played Despacito on that podium?
Yeah.
Now he's just walking around like this all the time trying to get Asians to vote for him. That's all it is.
Come on, man.
Shit.
So what do you think, Adam, about his handling of Iran and where it's sitting right now?
I'm pretty much surprised at the aggressive foreign policy stance he's taken in the election year. It's almost as if he's basically intentionally throwing away the presidency, in which he's done with the handling of Gaza itself, but just to go and have missile strikes in Syria and Iran on top of it at the same time. Disaster. And the Iranians even were so bold to go to Al Hayat magazine and basically state in their own news agency, and basically said one of the first things they said while the missile strikes were raining down in Syria and Dar es Zor, basically was to say, well, this guy just basically became more warmongering than his previous predecessor and the previous predecessor before that, and that was Trump and Obama. It just so happens, and also they basically said that was the end of his presidency, no matter if it's whoever runs, whether it be a chicken or a snake. And they were just poking fun. Well, it's true. I mean, you take it from the outside point of view of the United States. You look at the U.S. foreign policy in the last 12 months, and you'll say, wow, what an unmitigated disaster this has been. It basically is not just Biden himself, but it's also the pressure from the very lobby that influences American politics. And that is the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, also known as AIPAC. It's a shame because what's going to happen from this is basically you're going to have a lot of people in the future being victimized, Israeli citizenry being victimized, truly victimized. And no one's going to hear their cries because anti-Semitism was played so much. And so it's like the boy who cried wolf. And what this will do in the future is that every single time that the United States is basically saying that Israel has a right to defend itself is going to cause more on the other side to basically say, well, that's not true. As you can see that even South Africa, of all places, the only places with balls to basically call out the Israeli war crimes, in which I reported ad nauseum about the 4 statutes, or called the Rome statutes, for the Hague, which are war crimes, crimes against humanity, crimes of aggression, and genocide. And Israel has basically violated all 4. And the only country on the face of the earth to basically call them out for it is the country, incidentally enough, that knows about apartheid. And that would be South Africa.
Yeah.
Biden, with the Iranian decision, when this happened on October 7th with Gaza and Hamas attack, and Israel called it its own version of 9/11, which was a failed pre-intelligence warnings, and even Egypt warned them something was big was going to happen. We all knew. I mean, basically, if you're not an anti-Semite, you're just somebody looking on the outside. You knew what was going to happen, and that was the liquidation of the Palestinians out of Gaza. But Israel went a little bit further than that. Now they're attacking. The settlers are attacking as well as the military, attacking West Bank. The goal, and Israel basically even won't deny it because they come right out and say it because nobody will do anything about it. The goal, especially coming from people like Ben-Gvir, Israeli finance minister, and Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, basically saying, we don't want the Palestinians here at all. And who's going to say anything? The United States, the coalition partners, Great Britain, Germany, Spain, Australia, Canada? No,
It'd be a
nobody's
cold
got
day
the
in
guts.
hell.
True. And the reason why they're saying these things out in the open and they're being more egregious about it is only because for over the past 40, 50 years, nobody has ever held them accountable. You look at the cabinet of Benjamin Netanyahu today, it is the most racist, the most nationalist administration in Israel's history. And that is saying something. When you have people like Ben-Gvir, who I call Dracula, basically saying on Israeli TV, saying that he loved nothing more for the liquidation of the Palestinian people. And this is causing an uproar within Muslim nations. And look, Sunni, Shia, they're all basically opposing this. But here's the problem. And I think the problem is this, and I'll end it with this, is that you're going to have two sides within the Muslim community here. You're going to have the Sunni and Shia. And the Sunni, when I'm talking about the Sunni, I'm not talking about the moderate Sunnis. I'm talking about the Gulf here, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates. Incidentally, all three of those countries are in a tentative relationship with Israel. That's starting back in 2020, 2021. And there was a reason for that. And I think the reason was simple, that Israel was waiting for a time in the future for them to take advantage of an attack, just like they did with 9/11, where they implemented the Patriot Act. We went to war with Iraq and Afghanistan. Well, I think that Israel was waiting for this moment, and they got their moment. They allowed this to happen. And that's balls for me to say that because it's speculation. I can't really prove it. But I'm going to say with high confidence that the intelligence that they had coming from their own supervisors and Israeli IDF at the Jericho Wall, that Hamas was over here digging tunnels, and they're saying nothing. Well, those are farmers. They wanted this to happen so they can have the reason and the backing of the United States in which they can expel the Palestinians out of Gaza, West Bank, and all of Israel. Because when you have settlers in your administration like Ben-Gvir and Joel Shapiro and all these people and Eli Cohen and all these people basically say they want to rebuild the third temple so that the Mashiach could come and destroy the entire world and have Gentiles as slaves, 500 Gentiles, I think, as slaves. Yeah, these are people. It sounds similar because you could take a look at the evangelical Christian community backing up Donald Trump. And what do they want? Well, they want the war with Israel so that Jesus Christ could come down and basically save the first 144,000 and the rest who basically will be raptured up, those who come into Christ. And those killed, incidentally and ironically enough, are the Israelis because they don't believe in Christ.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's something. I mean, my grandmother, she's in her late 70s. She has got her degree in religious studies, and so I grew up like around a lot of like religious talk and like learning about the history of stuff. Less like fervor. She's pagan. She doesn't give a fuck about any of this. She's a witch. Like that's her prerogative. So, but her like, you know, she's very interested in religious history and all this kind of stuff and really ancient history. And so I grew up around a lot of that stuff. And I mean, even her position, she's like in her late 70s, and she'd say that the Netanyahu administration and what's going on over there is like, this is the worst it's been she can remember. Like, she's like, I mean, this is pretty fucked. Like, and that's even going back to like the 60s and stuff. She's like, this ain't good. Like, you know.
Well, I know he's highly unpopular amongst the Israeli citizenry over there. Well, I've actually spoken to some people that absolutely love him, but they seem to be a minority.
Well, the Reformed now, what it is the Reformed Jews love him, and this is some perspective I can give because I come from Jewish background. I was raised that way, but that's the Radner part of my name, you know. So you know, the Reformed Jews really like sort of Zionist structure, I think Netanyahu structure that he's put in place. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that really Reform Judaism is kind of a weird thing. Like, it's like you just sort of decide that you're Jewish, and that really isn't an old thing. That's something that's fairly new in the Jewish world, like especially en masse the way that it is. You go to the biggest synagogue here in my state, that's a Reformed synagogue. If you go over to the biggest synagogues in a lot of states, they're going to be Reformed synagogues. They're not going to be your traditional Jewish synagogues, right? Where those tunnels were being dug, right? That's a traditional, that's a more of a traditional technical synagogue, right? But the system that they have in place now with Judaism is in a system very similar to the way the Catholic Church went, which is basically, we don't have enough money and power. We need to get money and power. And the way that you get money and power is by getting more people. And so when that is the end goal, you do things like allow people to pay for their sins, right? Or you allow people to say, come in and join off of anything, right? So it doesn't really, now this whole your mother's Jewish thing, really, we don't care too much. Like, come over here. We got a spot for you. And so that's what also helped them sort of merge themselves with much of the Christian community, because that is where you come up with this Christian fundamentalism, this idea that, well, we're going to have Jesus come back, and so we kind of need this piece of land that's over here. And like that whole attitude, that whole opinion comes from this idea of Reform Judaism entering the sort of space, and this idea of sort of a dilution of what the faith used to be. If you want to practice Judaism, which I don't, but if you do want to practice Judaism and you're going to practice it, I suggest you practice actual orthodoxy or some form of it. But there's also a lot of bad stuff there. And so my suggestion to you is to find a group of Jews who have built a version of the faith that operates so that you can do it in a way that's actually correct to the world we live in today. And that's my problem with most organized religion, is that the old forms of them, right? The oldest forms of these religions often aren't actually that bad, or as bad as people make them out to be.
Yeah.
But we have a modern way of looking at these things. And so my suggestion to people for the most part is like, base most of your faith off of like how you as a person view the world, and sort of outward what people you trust view the world. So if you have religious figures who you think had the right idea, that's a way to do that. But I don't like follow anything in particular anymore.
Well, and a lot of this seems to be bastardizations of a lot of people's faith.
That's modern Judaism in a nutshell.
That's modern religion in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Let's be real.
Yes.
I have a bunch of Muslim friends that say almost the exact same lines as all of my Christian friends and all my Jewish friends do.
So I've got Kareem. Everything. I sent Kareem the link. He might join. We'll get the rainbow going.
The thing is about the Middle East that's very different than any other geographical spot in the world is the Middle East has a very, very, very long history, and she also has a very, very long memory. She does not forget a damn thing. Every single war that has taken place there, every conquest, every nation, every failed nation, all of it's been remembered by its people, just passed down culturally. They're very effective at it. It's quite impressive. The turmoils that we see in the Middle East are not things that stem from anything modern. It's not geopolitical. These are things that have began since before the concept of nations that we now know existed. And the unfortunate thing is that we have put ourselves square in the middle of this long family feud that they have had. We have heavily armored one side, which is Israel. We have given them millions and millions and billions of dollars worth of missiles and defense and all this. And then we have also armed the other side by leaving munitions in the Middle East from another failed conquest that the Middle East has once again pushed out. Munitions, guns, explosives, whatever the hell they could find that got left behind from us or the Russians or whatever. So we have basically, and we've created a straw house, filled it with gasoline, and have wondered why the fuck it caught fire when we lit a cigarette. And everyone's trying to figure out who to blame and where it goes. But if you look at Netanyahu and you look at the Israeli government, not the Jewish people, not the Israeli people, I'm talking about Netanyahu and the Israeli government, which is always the problem with any nation is their government. They are corrupt because we made them corrupt. They spent too much time with American politicians, and therefore our policies and our ideas rubbed off on them, unfortunately. So now the behavior that they're demonstrating, which is baiting in an attack and then retaliating at an extra normal level, Iraq and Afghanistan 2001, they got that from us. That we can't blame them. Who do we blame? We blame ourselves because we created these monsters that we created in our own nation, and now these monsters are spreading and creating more monsters overseas, and so it once again falls to us because we have not done enough.
I would push back on that slightly because I don't think they got the corruption from us, because it's not like we invented corruption, and we've got one of the newest countries, so
we have
took a minute. We have almost perfected it. I will give you that. But I would say that if they learned the corruption from anybody, it would be their fellow Europeans that they were hanging out with when they created the concept of Zionism in Europe, having never been to what is now Israel. There were a lot of people. Yeah, exactly. Blame the fucking British. Like there was a lot of them in Europe when this whole thing started, and Europe was already as corrupt as we are now.
Well,
by World War II.
A lot of the first settlers, if we want to get down that road, a lot of the first settlers to Israel, and I know this pretty passionately, were Germans, and not the good kind. So like there's a lot of history there that so there's some weird shit that happened back then, especially in the late 40s.
Do you want me to give you a simple answer as to why I know it was American corruption and not anyone else?
Sure.
Look at their defense. Look at their national defense spending. That is corruption that comes from America. Every other European nation that has massive amounts of corruption, their defense is absolutely abysmal. The British could not. I guarantee you, if the IRA started back up right now, the British probably couldn't defend against it. Guaranteed. They're so fucking weak. I mean, every European nation right now is so soft that even the Germans.
I'm just gonna start singing "Come Out, You Black and Tans" if we keep going down an IRA conversation.
I'm just excited to possibly see another monarch die.
I'm tied into some of those channels over there, and there are some locals over there that are pissed, and especially because Sinn Féin is the ones letting all of these really extremely violent refugees into the country. I use that term loosely just because that's what everyone's calling them. I mean, they're not refugees, they're economic migrants at best. But there's a lot of locals over there really, really pissed. So,
is there a difference between a refugee and an economic migrant?
Legally, there is.
Yeah.
According
refugee,
to them,
you have to apply for asylum.
Yeah, I think a legitimate refugee, there is like a case to be made.
Yeah, this is always something that I get tangled up with because like Alaska likes immigration. Like we're into this. Like we were for the most part when the state started, right? There's no one over here. We kind of needed people to work. That's kind of how our whole system was created. But at the same time, like you get to a point where you're like, you can't just have an open system where we're at, because the ultimate result to that is that there's no economic structure you can build, because there's no competition that can be structured, because the government's created a monopoly on who can compete in the market. So like if they just decide these people are going to be the ones that get the deals, they're the ones that are going to get to compete, you're just fucked, which is what I don't think people get here. Like it's not just that people are moving into the country, it's that people are moving into the country and the government is favoring them over the regular citizenry. If that is happening, then you are not going to have anything in 100 years, because those people are going to have all the wealth. That's how that operates. Like we've watched that happen here in America. We watched it happen with the Irish and the Italians and in a part the Jewish immigrants. I mean, my family came over in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. Like It's what happened. Like, that's just the system. The whole American
and
dream. Oh, go ahead.
It's crazy now that like the LAPD is bringing in migrants to be a part of the police system, and Kareem is here.
Hey,
I like to have a diverse
real
crowd. So
I don't know who.
here's Richard Reeves.
There's a small group of people who would get that reference.
What up, Kareem? How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. It's just having a fun time. 100th episode, so kind of
Nice.
a big one. Glad to have you here.
Glad I could be here.
So we were kind of just wrapping up on little bit of everything as far as the Middle East and migrants and everything. So I did want to keep it moving. And there was one video it's been passed around Twitter quite a bit, and I thought because of the border situation, this was actually pretty relevant in my opinion. Let's see right here. It's this one right here.
What?
So
What's going on, guys? I know y'all come to my page because of the comedy, and I just play around on here. And I don't get political very often. Sometimes I have some things to say about things. I live in Texas. I was just in Eagle Pass, and I've got some videos I need to show you guys. Because you're watching the news, whether it's CNN or Fox, you're letting these news media idiots get you riled up against each other. Let me show you some videos that might just calm your ass down and make you turn off the TV. Watch this. All right, so this is the wall, the fence that we put up. And they put up a secondary fence because they opened the gates. There's some armed guards with some pretty serious weaponry. Pretty intimidating, right? Here's your razor wire in between the two bridges that are in the entrances into Mexico and also the entrance to Eagle Pass. There's some Hummers, some more guys, right? We're protecting, we're keeping them out. This is 0.5 miles from that area. 0.5 miles from where they set up their cameras. 0.5 miles from where they have all the people there. And it's right down the road. I left this long to show you just how short of a drive it is for us to get to a point where all that we just saw does not matter. And they're just getting you riled up against each other because it's election time. And right about here is where you're going to see it. What's that? Where are the armed guards? Where are the AR-15s? Where's the razor wire? Where's the gates? That's half a mile from where the media is blowing up that Texas versus the feds, that we're having this big battle. So that was one gate. That was the very first gate that I saw. We drove down a little bit more. There's one. It had a chain on it. So you keep driving down the road. You got Trump's wall doing its job. This one has never even had a gate. So to me, it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, liberal, libertarian. It doesn't matter what you are. And you're posting about this Texas versus the feds and we could have a civil war. I'm telling you right now, if a civil war breaks out, it's not because there's something good to fight over. It's because it's election time. It is because the news media is corrupt and you need to turn the TV off. I don't care what news media you watch. Just go down there and look yourself.
yeah, I thought that was incredibly interesting. Anyone have thoughts about that?
I think there is a good reason to be upset with Texas and the feds. It's not necessarily just migration. I think peaceful secession would be good for everybody. Americans and non-Americans for maybe 3 primary reasons. If you study history, you'll see the South voted to leave, whether you agree with that or not. If they're going to talk democracy, the South legitimately, the Union died in 1861, in my opinion. And we can debate the historicity of that and then the Constitution, but I think we're all libertarians, so I don't think anybody, or ANCAPs or anarchists, I don't think we care about that. Second, why are we paying? If states leave, at least we're not paying taxes to the federal government. It's not an insane improvement, but at least it's a small improvement. Third, I think I could make, like you're talking about the Middle East, I didn't see the conversation. But let's just say, someone's in Florida, someone's in, Texas, someone's in Pennsylvania, New York, and then they say, oh, one state is its own country, which everybody will mostly agree each state is its own country. If somebody wants to go to war, or someone wants to support Israel or Ukraine or Taiwan, I think one state by itself, Pennsylvania doesn't want to do that. Okay, well, Ohio does. Well, nobody else wants to do that, Ohio. So I think it would deter rampant imperialism throughout the region. And to me, there's no net negative. I think people can say all the time, like, oh, well, wouldn't, China this, that, and the other. I don't think they would still have a chance against average hunters or even what Bootleg has, behind him. And the founders wanted a militia, not an expansive military. And I think that would do well just protecting each state. So regardless if there are any migrants at the border or not, I think Texas has a right to be upset with the federal government just because of its existence. And I think peaceful solution is the best idea, or peaceful secession is the best forward answer.
Yeah, I do agree that it's a farce, right? They're using the illegal immigration thing to cover up what the actual issue is. This is the white Southerner will speak on states' rights again. That happened well last time. But it really comes down to what right does the federal government have to regulate over states when the federal government isn't solving an issue that the states want? That's the whole purpose of the federal government, is to solve issues that states aren't able to do on their own or aren't supposed to do on their own. So things like national borders, that's a federal government issue when one state is not responsible for a border that it shares with 6 other states, right? Texas is upset. I don't know. I'm not going to throw out an opinion one way or the other, whether they're right or they're wrong, but Texas is pushing the boundaries right now. They're seeing how far they can get and pushing back. They came out with that Texas Freedom Suppressor bill, which basically would have said all ATF regulation on suppressors made in Texas are now null and void. And then now they're pushing back on the border stuff. I think what we're seeing is Texas is trying the waters. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not. It's not a thing that they're going to do. It's their defense. Their national defense would be good, but it wouldn't be great. They've got too much oil. The U.S. government rolls in overnight, takes over just because of the fucking oil. Long history, But
do they? Here's the thing. I question. I mean, granted, yes, there are people who are brainwashed, but I question: is there a certain point where let's say it does happen, or they want to secede? Is there a certain point where Americans just say, no, I'm not going to fight other Americans, or are they too far gone?
Nope.
No.
I think there's going to be
yet to
some
happen so far.
I think there'll be some, but I don't think that's going to be a majority, especially at this point.
You didn't see any issues at Waco or Ruby Ridge or any other time that the American military has been turned on its own citizens.
Technically, that
COVID,
not the military.
Yeah, COVID.
I mean, I could give you 1,000 examples in Alaska, but how about, I think the most famous, but Schaefer Cox. Schaefer Cox was basically hunted down and arrested. No one in Alaska gave a fuck. That guy was in charge of an entire militia here. So...
Yes, correct. I'm not debating the actual historicity of that, but in the case of Waco, that was the ATF. In the case of Schaefer, that was the FBI or CIA, I believe. It was an intelligence agency. But regular, average military people, I would especially think infantry, would be more
what up, Tex?
with the general public. I don't think I don't think they can take down a whole state. I think they can take down individuals or a complex. I would agree with that. They can even take down maybe a group like, Whiskey Rebellion stuff, but not a whole state. A whole state says we're going.
But I guess that poses the question, do you actually have to take down a whole state, or do you just have to cripple a state? We've seen the last 3 winters in a row how easily crippled the entire Texas energy grid can be. Like modern warfare is a whole different thing than like Whiskey Rebellion kind of stuff. We're talking just shut down the internet, shut down the water, shut down the electricity. And then, Texas wouldn't have the capability to build back that infrastructure fast enough before you would see a civil war within Texas of the citizens pissed at causing that.
I would still debate that, because actually we have an example of that. And I was arguing with my dad. I was arguing with people now. A lot of people think modern warfare. First of all, it's very drone based from what Conor McGregor said. You can fight without a lot of modern amenities, but you said you talked about the Middle East. I'm guessing Gaza got brought up, and Gaza is in that situation. And from what I can see, from what I'm told, and from what I can gather, not a military expert, don't claim to be. Yes, they killed a lot of civilians, like 28,000, 25, 30. But it seems to me like regular dudes, like guerrilla warfare with rifles and homemade RPGs are taking down like Merkava tanks and the so and they've lost a lot of, from what I can see, it's like rubble. So,
but we're talking about 2 completely different classes of human when you're comparing your average. Ooh, that came out really wrong. That's not what I meant.
Wow,
but like,
New York.
you can't compare an average, like your average American.
I guess the heat's off me now.
You can't compare your average first world country American to someone who has spent their entire lives in a war zone. Like, we're going to be a lot more pissed a lot quicker about a lack of internet access than someone who's literally been living in a war zone since the day they were born. We as Americans, the average Americans, the 6 of us on this call, I know are probably all a little bit better than this. The average American is a fucking pussy, and would like. When Netflix went down, or Facebook went down for like 2 days a couple of years ago, everybody lost their absolute fucking minds.
Called 911 over it.
Yeah, like we're talking about a much weaker class of human that lives in the United States than those in even Ukraine, especially the eastern side of Ukraine.
I don't know about taking a small minority and creating that into the majority. I think the vast majority of blue collar workers, millions of them who are getting up at 5 a.m. to go fight the brutal cold and swing fucking hammers all day, would argue strongly that we're not a weak society. We never have been. America is one of the nastiest societies on planet Earth. We get bored of killing other people, so we fucking kill each other. But in the strong reality is, if a civil war breaks out, both sides will use their draft power. That's what happened last time. Not everyone's going to be stupid excited about going to Texas and getting shot and buried under a fucking bull or some shit. They're going to draft, and it's going to be massive on both sides, because both sides will have a vested interest in winning, and neither side will be willing to lose. So it doesn't matter if they're willing to; they're going to.
I mean, it's going to be glorified political theater, which is basically what all of this is. But
so I mean, I want to point something out here, because I agree with something Chris just said there. Like in Alaska, my area here, most of our jobs are industry jobs. They're oil, they're gas, they're mining, they're resource collection, road maintenance, that kind of stuff, construction. And on top of it, like you talk about, like gun ownership here is 65%, and that's just reported. I mean, there's like something like, I think 3 guns to every 1 person or something here in the state of Alaska. It's like this isn't just a community of like this idea of like Montana or Kansas or something where you have these ranchers and stuff. It's like, no, Alaska's only been a state since the 50s. The culture here is very much one of, if you are not from Alaska, get fucked. Like that is the state motto at this point. So you can't
if a civil war breaks out, Alaska's just gonna put up their borders heavy and say "fuck y'all." That's when the Alaskan independence movement kicks off and wins. Yeah. Hawaii would do the same thing.
What I was going to mention earlier when we were talking about Texas was Alaska has a better argument for independence than most states. So does Hawaii. The reason behind this is because when they were admitted into the Union, they were given a raw deal. The guy behind me, Joe Vogler, who was the guy who created the Alaskan Independence Party, he was assassinated in the 1990s. His whole legal argument, he was a lawyer. His legal argument was, we were not given the proper deal when we were admitted into the Union. Before we were admitted into the Union, we were a territory. Territories are ruled over by the UN, not by the federal government. And so his argument was to the UN, not to the federal government. He basically was making the argument we can go over their head. And most other states don't have that argument. So I believe Alaska specifically has a better claim to independence than places like Texas or New Hampshire or any of these other places that get brought up in the mix.
Yeah. I just want to respond real quick to something you said, though, Chris, because you said that I was making a minority into the majority and that your average blue collar American is tough. Blue collar jobs make up about 14% of the U.S. workforce. That's not a majority. That's not even close. That's the minority. The tough people in the U.S. are becoming a smaller and smaller minority, while your average person is a clerk at Walmart.
I mean, hell, we only needed 3%, though. Am I right? Woo-hoo.
Yeah,
I mean,
no
facts.
war the U.S. has ever fought has required more than 3% of its population to fight. So 14% is what we have available. We're pretty fucking stat. I mean.
And I'd also point out where the money lies, because that also plays a big role there, because you say 14% are blue collar, but blue collar also makes a lot more than those guys working in Walmart as checkers, right? So the inflow of wealth disparity there is going to be set different. And on top of it, because of that, they're going to have, because of the way Western culture works, in their community, they're going to have more sway over people who work at Walmart. In their own personal lives.
You have ingenuity as well. I mean, take the average Appalachian, and those redneck boys and girls, man, they're.
This is the Alaskan argument I make too. It's the same thing. It's exactly. These are people who are living in the woods who build cabins on their properties they purchase. These aren't fucking. It's a different class of. As David would put it, they're different people.
Different people. Hey man, Ben Shapiro's the top rapper, so anything's possible. That's what I'm gonna tell people. It's like you can't be this or that or MB. Ben Shapiro's apparently the top rapper, so
that tweet I put up about Ben Shapiro got 30,000 views.
Look at that.
That guy
got Roger Mayhem.
He's like this neckbeard guy is.
That guy was butthurt. I remember that.
And I said the Constitution sucks, and he got even angrier. He was like, "It's the best."
The guy had an Israeli and an American flag were the first things in his bio, and I was shitting on Ben Shapiro. That I put up a tweet. There's just a screen grab of that music video, and it was an hour after it went up, which is why this tweet got so many views. And it just said, regardless of political affiliation, we can all come together and agree that this shit is gay. And that guy decided to quote tweet it with my photo and start going after me. And I'm like,
oh, I saw that.
You have an AI generated image as your fucking profile photo. Like, I have no qualms about the way I look. Like, you're a fucking bozo.
Yeah. Plus, Dave Smith reviewed you, so you're big, sexy. We'll help you. I'll tell you what we'll do, Leighton. We'll help you align your chakras and astral project, and then you'll feel better.
Oh, for the love of God. I've got walrus teeth. What can I do with walrus teeth? Can I do anything with those? Does that align chakras? I need to know.
Yeah, man. You got to meditate. Like, you got to look up Neville Goddard.
So what was everyone's opinion on that whole Tom McDonald, Ben Shapiro rap song that somehow reached #1 on the Billboard?
I just want to say I am so fucking impressed at how good Ben Shapiro is at making himself sound like he's AI generated. I had to check and make sure
I
it was
think it
actually
was.
fucking him on the song.
I think it was. I'll go even further. I don't think he went in a booth. I don't think he recorded anything. I think I know guys in music, right? I've sat down with two guys in particular, one of them from Florida, who makes music using AI stuff for actual people in the music industry. Like, this guy does it for professionals, and they're using this shit to generate lines in their songs already.
Yeah.
So I 100% think that's going on in that stuff. Because think about it, right? If Ben Shapiro can just sell you basically his name to feature on this song, shows up to some green screen room, he's already got access to, the Daily Wire set, so he can just stand there basically and do the music video section. You can drop his head onto the fucking hoodie wear and be done with it. It's like, it's actually not as hard as I think people think it is. Like, I was showing people on Twitter clips of videos that are like, this is AI. Like, this is a music video where they didn't have the 80-yard line for this part of the song, so they just made it and inputted it in there. Like,
if you would like me to feature on your song and would like to use my likeness, always go to notarealpodcast.com and just get a hold of Susie, and we'll get me on that soundtrack one way or the other. Just reach out.
NotArealLibertarian.com. Tom McDonald seems to have like one thing. He's like, you know what? I want to let you know that I'm really not bothered by people who, are quote unquote woke. And it just feels like it's like, I'm anti-woke, man. Gotta know, man. I'm like, isn't it? They're trying to get attention. It seems you're trying to get as much attention as them. So like, to become what's the point? How about you talk about something that's more relevant? Like, in my opinion, the best rapper around, Immortal Technique, as opposed to, I don't know. This is starting to feel. It really feels like it's just a grift. Like, hey, I'm woke. I want attention. Well, I'm super anti.
The Tom McDonald thing literally became a grift. I was a fan of his when he first started. So you want an example? And actually, Jacob, I don't think this music is actually copyrighted. So there's a musician on YouTube named Samson. Okay, this guy does rap music, rap songs in his like garage and shit. They've got good view counts, and the stuff is really well produced. This guy is an actual rapper who's talking about stuff that you could view as anti-woke, but it's not his character.
Get up from like the middle of your lap.
Oh. Hi, Susie.
I forgot the mic was still on.
Not Mike moment.
Ruin.
That was not a real moment.
Noise cancellation kept you quiet for most of the time Leighton was talking, but it was still some slip through.
I'm really bad about that, and I apologize.
Oh, really?
Hey,
we didn't know.
Whatever. That's what we're here for. Am I right?
It's just hilarious. It caught me off guard.
Just because the camera's off doesn't mean shit else is off.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure Ben Shapiro was AI generated. They just took a sample of his speaking voice and just plugged him into some engine, and I don't know. It seemed way too perfect, And then like why? I've seen Ben Shapiro's opinion on rap music before. Why would he go out of his way to go into an actual booth and like lay down a track? It doesn't make sense to me.
He thinks it makes him relatable, but it doesn't.
The weird, he swears up and down it's actually him. It's not AI generated. He swears it's him, and I believe him. I fully believe that it hits him on the track. It's just he's just so good at sounding like a fucking robot that's how he comes off.
I mean,
like,
maybe
I guarantee you, like that capture thing where it says, "Oh, you a robot?" He fails that shit half the time.
Oh man, I don't know. It was just weird, and it was kind of just weird timing.
I still haven't actually seen it. I
I've put just his up on Twitter. I could go find it real quick.
some people are suggesting he's trying to be kind of cool and hip because a lot of people got mad at him because like he was doing crazy, saying and doing crazy things like blowing up on Candace for like, quoting the Bible and blowing up on people because they had maybe
that was
like
fairly unhinged.
or like, hey, I think Netanyahu's like killing people on Hinge, and he's like, what? And then he probably is like, hey, PR team, how can I seem cool? I'll do a music video. Like, yeah, no, I'm hip.
Oh, Tom McDonald's cool.
I liked him when he first came out, but then I started to see a progression of the kind of thing he said he was against. I'll give you an example. If you're truly anti, like, the music establishment, like a lot of these underground metal people I know, you don't want to be on the top of billboards. You don't want people to find your music. You don't care if you're big. Yes, I like G.G. Allen. I like some kind of, people a little bit radical, but they don't care about getting famous. He's like, get me on the billboards, get me to number one. And they saying, but the music industry is corrupt. So the music industry is corrupt, but you want to be at the top of it. It's almost like these Congress people who say like, man, the government is so corrupt. Isn't this horrible? Oh my God, I got to get, we got to fight for freedom and all this stuff. I really don't want to be here. And they vote to expand government. Just like, it's the same thing.
Maybe it kind of is that like libertarian dichotomy of hypocrisy, though, where like because we all say the exact same thing of like the government is terrible, and then but vote for this guy, he's my friend. He won't be terrible, I promise. It's that kind of like it wouldn't be terrible if we were at the top of it. Like if we can beat the establishment, then we could fix it. Might be where he's coming from. That's kind of the impression I got.
Maybe, but like if Rechtenwald, let's say theoretically Rechtenwald or Josh Smith got in and they didn't start to pull stuff back, I'll get mad. I got mad at, I'm like, look, Milei, he did some regulation cutting, but like end the drug war, privatize the police. Let's get a little hardcore if we're gonna do this, not just like
Hey, Jacob, I just want to say congrats on 100, man. I got to bounce, but here's to another 100.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for popping in, and we'll get you on a solo show here soon.
Yeah, man. We'll see you around, and happy birthday, bud.
Hey, thank you. Talk to you soon, dude.
Later, man.
Peace.
So I went ahead and shared this so that we could play it here, because for anybody who hasn't seen it, this is just Ben Shapiro's part here. Here we go. So that is what I would qualify as extremely gay.
Okay, can we all be? Let's be honest though. Tom had to have wrote that verse, not Ben.
Oh, absolutely. That is. You are.
Yeah.
No. No one thinks Ben Shapiro wrote that. I don't think anyway.
I certainly don't.
I once remarked that a while back that Ben Shapiro sounds like what a non-white guy imitating what a white guy sounds like.
Somebody building a bomb? I hear a timer going off. What's happening here? Kareem, if that's you, you're leaning into a lot of stereotypes.
What did I do?
You're going to need to use that thing on your neck on the top of your head in a minute. I don't...
It's really cumbersome. I mean, it's really fascinating to watch people like Mike. We talked about Mike Cernovich and we talked about Ben Shapiro. If you look at these people, just from, on a view of a political stance, there's nothing remarkable about these people. They just seem to have catchphrases and try to adore the loyal followers of these, conservative or leftist political field. And you'll notice, I hate to pick on the conservatives here, but I mean, it just, when you look at these younger versions, it's just like what's his name, Kirk, this guy Kirk Christian, what's his name? His name escapes me. Christian Kirk.
Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk, thank you. Ben Shapiro and Matt Gaetz, and you look at these people, they just look like somebody who like did a cartoon back in the 1950s and came to life with these, banal remarks that they make over the years, and just like you wonder how these people became popular to begin with. Well, that's exactly how they got popular, because they said edgy things, and they basically have a lot of PAC money behind them, and here they are. But there really isn't anything remarkable about what they're saying or doing, because
Not really.
somebody just brought up earlier about why don't they talk about really important issues. They can't, because it becomes a moral issue now. And when you look at the divisive issues here in the United States, politics, racism, religion, these are meant to confuse and divide us. But if you look at the bigger picture, this is something I respect the Libertarian Institute in doing. If you look at the geopolitics and the apolitical field of say Europe and Southeast Asia and the Middle East, you'll notice there's a consistent finding here, is that there is no left and right. It's an us versus them mentality, and they're doing it in our name. And since we're not paying attention to what's happening in, say, Gaza or Ukraine or Yemen, and we're basically talking about, feminism or racism here in the United States, all those things, religion, politics, racism, all the catchism and constructs, they don't exist. They're basically taught analogies to you. You're not born a racist. You're not born, a Democrat or a Republican. These are taught ideologies. And you look at the human race as in total, you'll notice that everybody wants to belong in a certain little group because they feel that they stand out. You already stand out as a human being. And I hate to go up on this tangent, but yeah, that's what these people remind me of. It's just, they're not very remarkable in their own. They're not bringing anything new to the table, anything enlightening. And maybe that's a more nefarious reason, is that they want us to become dependent on their version of entertainment and keep us destabilized and paralyzed mentally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a alien dialectic. Well, to me, Conservative Inc. is just that. It's like, hey, man, you want to rebel against them liberals, don't you? But not too much. Look, we're against big government, but, only the big government that has a D on it. But if that is an R or something, okay, yeah. Like, I'll even see people like, Michael Knowles or something, who, like, my friend Harrison will call out. He's like, well, government's bad and all this, and Michael Malice on, but then a governor will, I forget the governor of whatever state, man, it wasn't Katie Hunt, it was Arizona or something. She had like a really, really anti-gun law, and he's like, well, that's what you do. You have governmental power, so you can do this, and that. So it seems to me a lot of these conservatives and a lot of these liberals, will play the same game. And it's like, I've listened to Dave Pakman, I've listened to Destiny, I've listened to Sam Cedar on the other side, and I'm not overtly impressed in any of them. I'm not impressed in any authoritarians, really. ANCAPs have the best arguments, and I'd say followed by them, the agorists have good points as well. So
I think this is a two-pronged issue, or like a catch-22 kind of issue, where it's partially the people that are becoming famous are unremarkable, but I think it also, there's a chunk of the blame that falls onto us, the consumers. I mean, again, not maybe not the six of us here, but the consumers in general, because we've gotten to a place where you won't watch or listen to something that's not relatable. So then it becomes a race to the middle of who can be the most unoriginal, relatable, unimpressive, unremarkable person, so that the most people can listen to them and still feel like they have something in common. Like I like Rogan's show a lot, but I think that part of the reason why he consistently says things like, I'm not smart, I'm just an idiot with a podcast and stuff like that, is maybe, I think he's probably being genuine when he says that, but at the same time, he's retaining his audience by saying that. If he actually consistently was just talking about how crazy incredible his life is, he would lose his audience because people like him because they think he's an idiot who talks to smart people, and that's something that they can relate to. Not calling him an actual idiot, but you know.
So one thing I want to touch on, and then we'll start wrapping up so I don't keep you guys too long. Just recently, in case nobody heard about this, lots of people heard about this, but the first human trial of Neuralink actually happened. The first Neuralink implant took place. So let's take
connecting with your loved ones, browsing the web, or even playing games using only your thoughts. This is made possible by placing a small, cosmetically invisible implant in a part of your brain that plans movements. The device is designed to interpret your neural activity so you can operate a computer or a smartphone by simply thinking about moving. No wires or physical movement are required. By participating in the PRIME study, you'd be helping to redefine the boundaries of human capability. If you've been living with quadriplegia from a spinal cord injury or with ALS, you may qualify for the PRIME study. We'd love to share more with you and get you on board. Visit our website today to learn more and to submit your application. We'll be supporting you with a dedicated team at every step on this revolutionary journey. Your courage and contribution could significantly shape the future of interaction and independence, not just for you, but for countless others.
So one thing I'll say real quick, the idea of this, like the potential of what it could do for like the good is so impressive, but I know for a fact it won't be used for that, because just the very simple aspect of, you know, the Wright brothers invented the airplane, and the very first thing that happened is the government got a hold of it and tried to strap bombs to them.
Mm-hmm.
So this is it's going to be the same thing, just like every other invention out there. You know, there's so much potential for good to happen, and it's going to be completely wasted, and it's going to be weaponized. And personally, it scares the shit out of me.
It scares me too. I personally would never want to use it, even if I had an implant. But I will say this. This is going to be an absolutely crazy argument. The government has had, like, from what I understand, the internet we're using right now is a DARPA project, initially to communicate through LAN, local area networks, for military and intelligence protocols. So you can actually reverse, and a lot of people are arguing AI, you know, and I've come around on AI, but I still want to, you know, say like, hey, don't overuse it. Since, as I put in below my name, I'm a pluralist, and a lot of people don't like that. I agree to coalition with different anarchists, and Leighton probably I drive him crazy with this. But there's a branch of anarchism. These people aren't really ubiquitous in society, but they call themselves, I guess, anarcho-transhumanists, or they're anarchists, or very individual. And they're the exact opposite of the primitivists. They're very into space exploration stuff, and I've seen some of them. So I would say if you want to personally be a transhumanist and put your soul into, like, you know, all these machines and do all this and have a society with scanners, I wouldn't really like that, but I wouldn't be against that. But the problem is, I don't know what Elon Musk is doing. So the issue is the government is definitely going to use this. That being said, if individuals want to use this for their own pursuits in a decentralized society, I wouldn't oppose that. And for the record, I used to hate Huxley, and now I actually like Huxley, and I don't blame him for Scientology, because he inspired the decentralized movement around transhumanism. And I know I'm sounding like mini Klaus Schwab now, but hopefully I'm not.
Yeah, I'm I'm excited for what it could do, but I don't even have to worry about like, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like,
yeah,
and I'm not an Elon Musk hater by any stretch of the imagination, but just look at what's happened to Twitter since he took over. I'm not talking about the racism or any of the other shit. I get 20 to 40 follows a day from bots. A day.
Yep.
I don't need that shit inside my skull. Like, he clearly doesn't know how to just like, this is something that requires like extremely careful, like very technical shit that he has demonstrated over and over again, whether it's through Twitter or Tesla or SpaceX or anything else that he's ever touched. He is too ADHD to actually stick with a project long enough to make it the 100% perfect that like self-driving cars should have been before they went out onto the road.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing why he was doing that, because the more people that those cars hit, the more quadriplegics can get Neuralink.
Yeah.
I got my rig. I can see again.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
To be fair, like, I'm pretty crazy, and I get the whole entrepreneurial spirit. If I just launched something, it's the greatest thing. Oh, I forgot to do 10 things. I get that. I'm not really. Now, to be fair, I'm not like I'm not an Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, that
fan.
criticism was super hypocritical. For the record, I am worse than Elon at all of that. But
I'm on, you know, I pushed the spectrum up, but I think I'd feel better. You know what? Neuralink would be fine, even in beta, if there was no government or limited government. If there's just local government, I'm like, yeah, go ahead. My neighbor wants to be a cyborg. I'm not even going to lie. I'm a fan of a couple biohackers like Ben Greenfield, or even like Brian Johnson's kind of creepy, but I'm like, in some respects, I'm like, okay, if I could live to be 140 or 150 using some kind of technology, yes. And to be fair, I used to rail against AI. Now I'm teaching people literally as part of my side hustle on YouTube, like, okay, well, get Claude, write scripts, ChatGPT. So I'd be fine with this. I'd be fine with technology advancing under two conditions. A, it's not done. It's done without any government. The government can't use it because they're stupid anyway. They can't figure out how to use these, and they ask Zuckerberg how to send emails on Snapchat. And B, if there is a primitivist society in the future that you don't like, bring it there or push it on them, because I think they have legitimate arguments too. And I've had John Zerzan on, and he's made some good arguments against that, which is a whole nother crazy school of anarchism.
Yeah. That's
I feel like it's just going to be impossible to compete in the world after something like Neuralink becomes popular, in the same way that it would be almost impossible to be a competitive human in America today without a cell phone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how it's going to happen too, is just like the integration with email, because you can't do anything without an email address these days.
Mm-hmm.
Having a cell or not having a cell phone, it's not impossible, but good luck.
Yeah.
So, and it's the Neuralink is going to be the exact same thing. Eventually, there's going to be certain jobs that require it, and you're only going to be able to access your jobs database on the Neuralink network, and then I think about things like Futurama, where they interject ads into your sleep. Where Fry had the ad of the underwear in his dreams. That's just going to be a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know syndicalists and ANCAPs are going to lose their mind, and they've accused these people of, but like crazy things, and they want to unplug grandma, and they're stinky and all that stuff. But I honestly think it would be great if Elon or even you guys like sat down with John Zerzan and listened to his arguments, because it's not insane stuff. Like, even the advent of something like, I have a car. I don't hate cars, but like, and I get it, Leighton's not going to like this. And yes, I have an Uncle Ted shirt, but I do want to say this: is there a certain point where technology gets too far and human consciousness doesn't follow with it, that we have problems? Also, I've personally been inconvenienced by technology. I work fixing computers and helping out on the weekend with different stuff. I try and get away from technology. I'm walking around. My boss calls me in and says, there's an older guy here. He needs help. He needs to apply. I said, well, have him get on the internet and apply. He doesn't know how to do that. Literally, you cannot work at McDonald's if you do not apply online. I mean, I'm not saying, get rid of everything or scrap it like Teddy K, but I'm saying, can we take some considerations in just saying that technology, everything is not necessarily always great. Learning from PowerPoint doesn't inherently make you smarter. And this is coming from a guy who reviews crypto all day and works on a Chromebook. So that's what I want to say.
Well, I mean, to be fair, it's also coming from the guy who just a minute ago had beeping on the background, and
yeah, I'm a robot. Hey, let's Leighton. I'm gonna get
cyborg.
I'm gonna get John Zerzan on here or talk to Leighton, and he'll be like, "Man, this is cool." What Thanks, Kareem.
Bro, I would love to host a debate between like an anarcho-primitivist and an anarcho-transhumanist. That would be
that would be interesting.
I need to put that together. I've actually been trying for a while.
If you know
Kareem
a trend,
could probably help put that together. He knows a lot
Yeah.
of those randoms.
So here's the thing. I think coalitioning is cool. I know Leighton gets mad and like
You always frame this incorrectly. I have no problem with coalition building. I hate fucking commies. Period. End of story. I've been clear on this.
With commies, though. Yeah,
what's wrong with commies?
There's a bunch of good commies out there.
I'm
that are
too
doing some
close
good
to
shit.
Russia. I don't want to get fed with communists.
But those aren't communists.
Oh, fuck off.
No, they're really not. Like, we can have this debate later, but like
to your actual point, Kareem, I completely agree with you. I don't think it's a good thing that it's impossible to exist as a human in America without a cell phone. I think that's been a net negative for humanity, but it's just the objective truth. And I don't think to your point, like I don't think the human consciousness will ever catch up to a place where it realizes that it's fucking up in the moment and stops fucking up, and we just keep barreling forward down this road.
That's why we need, I think that's why we need to actually listen to, as crazy as he thinks, as crazy as some people make him out to be. I had him on. I've talked to green anarchists, primitivists. You find a transhumanist, I'll tell him, get on here. Let's have a debate, because there's different schools. And when I sat down to understand the different schools, I'm like, okay, some of this is rational. Some of this I don't like. There are some things I said that I don't care for. Some of Stirner's ideas, particularly. But that's fine. That's my thing. Even if you have a purely decentralized society, would make me feel good that the government's not in there, but still, it could. I think we can take it as humans, even though anarchists would take it too far. And there is some serious negative implications. If you listen to Dr. Twain on Joe Rogan, like even the microplastics could potentially cause major issues for human reproduction issues. Now, there's some herbs that can help with that and some things. She was being a little bit scary, but part of me thinks, okay, fine, maybe there's a Depop thing going on. But there's also cheap plastic's cheaper than glass. Okay. But what ramifications does that have on our society and the water? Like they always say, America's awesome, but I'd counter and say, like, look, I can't turn on my water. I have to filter my water. Like, there's topsoil depletion. Agriculture fed more people, but it's not the same amount of nutrition. Even aside from Zerzan, Dr. Saladino, the carnivore guy, which I agree with, I still eat vegetables, but he went to live with the Hadza, and they have interesting ideas about life. I don't want to live like that.
Yeah.
But I do want to work with those people and understand how their society functions from a decentralization perspective.
Should go live in like the some of the villages up here and live off of like a diet of like whale fat and like blubber and like seal.
Yeah, but I'll lose my 6-pack, so I don't know if I want to do that.
Oh, you'll gain about 150 pounds.
No, I ain't doing that. I think I struggle to get to 180, 170. I'm not.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, Roger in the
I'm
chat,
crazy.
fuck commies is right.
I saw that.
Oh,
No,
that's
I
fucking
don't
funny. So, on that note, one message I do want to share with everybody is that beware of black pills. I genuinely believe that the black pill or pessimism is a government psyop to be able to control any sort of an uprising before it would even happen. It's really dangerous to be pessimistic. If people are passing around black pills, be wary of them. Things are not hopeless. If things were hopeless, the propaganda would be entirely pointless. So, I mean, even conversations like this wouldn't even need to take place if things were entirely hopeless. So, beware of the black pills and report them to your nearest troll so they can be taken down. And on that, here's a real quick video I shot earlier, just real quick. This is the 100th episode. I want to thank all my viewers, listeners, for sticking with me on this. And if you're new, make sure and hit that like, subscribe. And this is to another 100. Or not. Or not. Nope.
All right.
There we go. There was a lot more confetti. It was a disgusting amount of confetti. So on that note, do you guys want to let everyone know where they can find you, what you have going on, all of that good stuff?
Oh, I'm over at outlawedthoughts.com. I'll take you to my YouTube channel, and then my Twitter is at Liberty Layton.
Hell yeah. I got my show, Fight for Liberty, over on Free Speech Media Network, which is also my network. So there's a couple of really good shows on there, including Ben Weir's Shut the Punk Up. Just had Spike Cohen on last week. I've got my good friend Stacia Wilson on this coming week. So yeah, go check it out.
Hell yeah.
You can find me on Twitter at Cream6633. I'm getting AI generated photos mad with Layton. You can also check out my website, Anarch Unity, where we promote unity amongst all anarchists. Basically the opposite of Chinese legalism. If you're an anarchist and you're against the state and you believe in coalition building, check out Anarch Unity. Do your thing. You can also find me at The Essential Libertarians on YouTube.
Hey, congratulations, Jacob, on your 100th episode, and happy birthday to you, young man.
Hey, thank you. Thank you.
I'm easy to find. I'm 6'10", 250 pounds. So, Adam Fitzgerald, 9/11. You could Google me, and I come right up.
Yeah, all of these guys produce great stuff, which is why it was a great pleasure to have all of you guys on. So thank you so much for joining me on such a monumental episode of this show. I didn't think I would make it 100 episodes, and we will be back for another 100 for sure. Real quick, everyone go check out my my new donation page. It's a Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com/rise to liberty, or you can just scan that awesome little QR code right there in the middle of your screen, and you can go over there. It's just quick little donations, minimum $2. I am setting up memberships. There's going to be all kinds of fun stuff, exclusive merch, early access to stuff. But yeah, if you like this show, want to help it out, that's a good way to go do it. Otherwise, hit that like, subscribe, share. Our big tech overlords try to make sure that this doesn't grow at all. So, get this out there. Go follow all of these guys. Guys, hang out for a sec while I close everything out. Other than that, until next time, stay free, my friends.
Thank you.